I'd be pretty confident in saying that no matter where in the world you're watching this video, you're very familiar with this. This is the best-selling pen in the entire world. Ever. You're probably so familiar with this pen that you consider it mundane. There's nothing new you could learn about it. Well, let's start with the name. Do you even know what it's called? You might call it a Bic, but that's the name of the company that manufactures them, although technically their official name is Société Bic. But anyways, back to the pen. This pen is called the BIC Cristal. It's basically ubiquitous. There's at least 2 on my desk right now, but the vast majority of people don't really know anything about it. That means it presents to us the perfect opportunity. All you have to do is learn some interesting facts about it, and it'll almost always be present to bring up in conversation and lead people to believe you're very smart. Or really weird. The BIC Cristal is a ballpoint pen, which means the tip is a tiny little ball that rolls around when you're writing, leaving a trail of ink. Actually, pretty much any pen you'll use now is a ballpoint, but this was not always the case. Before the ballpoint pen, there was the fountain pen, which comparatively is a bit of a pain in the ass to use and has to be angled a specific way to write. They're a bit more susceptible to leaking, the nib can get bent out of shape or clogged with dirt, they're just a bit finicky. In 1930, Hungarian Laszlo Biro thought the fountain pen could be improved. He saw some kids playing with marbles in a puddle and noticed the marbles leaving a trail of water as they left the puddle. This gave him an idea. He enlisted the help of his brother, Jörg, who was knowledgeable in chemistry, and together they began experimenting with pen designs that used a tiny ball as a nib. Now, they weren't the first or only people to try to make such a pen, but in this story they are the most important. Unfortunately, the pen wasn't all that great. Using a tiny ball for a nib required very precise machining, which was expensive and, well, not quite as precise as it needed to be, so the pens were prone to leaking. For years, the Biro brothers struggled to sell the pens until they managed to secure a contract with the British Air Force during World War II. To this day, it's not uncommon to hear the people of the British Isles call a ballpoint pen a biro. During the war, these ballpoint pens made their way to France, where Marcel Bic, a businessman and member of the French Air Force, encountered them. He was not particularly impressed, but he saw the potential. He bought the patent for the pens off the Biro brothers for $2 million and spent the next few years perfecting the design. Bic invested in Swiss watchmaking technology, which was capable of the high precision needed to accurately make the nibs. He also developed an improved ink that was thicker than the liquid ink used in fountain pens. With these improvements, his ballpoint pen neither leaked nor clogged, and in 1950, he presented the world with the Cristal, perhaps the greatest pen ever made. BIC Cristal was significantly cheaper and more reliable than the Biro brothers' designs. The Cristal has remained largely unchanged from its original 1950 release, so let's look at some of the things that make it so great. Firstly, the stainless steel ball in the nib is only 1mm in diameter, which is pretty cool. I wonder how it would feel to dip your hand in a big box full of those. Actually, I should mention that the ball was changed in 1961 from stainless steel to tungsten carbide, which is much harder. The Cristal's polystyrene barrel is hexagonal, which was inspired by the design of pencils and makes the pen easy to grip. Ever wonder why it has that little hole in it? That's to make sure the air pressure inside the pen is the same as the outside to ensure a consistent, smooth flow of ink and prevent leaking and stress to the barrel. The barrel is also transparent, of course, so you can see how much ink is left. Speaking of the ink, if you were to put the pen on a surface and walk, you could draw a line up to 3 kilometers in length before the ink ran out. So anytime your pen runs out, just think that that little ball rolled nearly 3 kilometers just from your writing. One of the few things that changed since the Cristal's 1950 release is the polypropylene cap, which had a pointed tip before 1991, when they added a hole to the top to reduce the risk of suffocation if you inhaled it for some reason. Marcel Bic went on a huge advertising campaign. He was advised to remove the H from the end of his name to market the product, which simplified it, making it more recognizable and significantly less likely to be pronounced as bitch. Heckler & Koch have a similar kind of problem with the pronunciation of their business name, but inversely to Bic, removing the H at the end would only make things worse, not better. As part of the marketing campaign, the iconic Bic Boy was designed as a mascot, whose head is a ball, just like the one found in the Cristal's nib. The Bic Boy was later added to the Bic logo in 1961, and is still used today. I never noticed before, but the shoulders don't really look right, do they? And his feet are asymmetrical too. The rest is obviously history. The Cristal has become the world's best-selling pen, reaching 100 billion sales by 2006, making it one of the most successful consumer products in history. And it's easy to see why. They're really cheap and really reliable. It's also easy to see why the design hasn't really changed since it came out back in 1950. What else could you do with it that wouldn't make it significantly more expensive? The design is so great that the Museum of Modern Art made it a permanent part of their collection, which seems a bit redundant as there's bound to be a bunch of them in there regardless. Of course, Bic has tried to get creative and come up with some variations of the Cristal over the last 70 years, but they're usually gimmicky and stupid. The most egregious example probably being the Bic Cristal for Her. Yes, Bic for Her was a real campaign in 2012 somehow, where they basically just released the same pens, but the plastic was in pastel colours and there were flowers on the packaging. And they were more expensive than the regular pens. As you can imagine, that idea went down like a lead balloon. You just can't mess with the Bic Cristal. It's already perfect. It's over 70 years old, but it seems likely it'll survive a full century, and probably beyond. Given how common they are, it's almost scary to imagine what future event could possibly lead to them ever falling out of favour. It's hard to imagine there'll ever be another pen that will take over their spot as number one, so I can only really see these falling by the wayside as part of some broad shift for humanity. Like maybe we'll eventually stop using pens altogether. Maybe we'll all be using digital styluses instead. Oh, there's a Bic Cristal stylus too, of course. Actually, to promote this stylus, Bic funded the Universal Typeface experiment, where users would use a stylus to write every letter of the alphabet. The idea was they could then average out everyone's strokes and create the ultimate average human font. The website no longer exists though. Anyway, I'd better wrap this up now before I start talking about any more subjects that are only vaguely related. Well, there is this pen. You've probably seen this one too. Do you know what it's called? The Bic 4-color. Yeah, they weren't as inventive with that one. Anyways, if you liked the video, I have a bunch more for you to watch, and you can subscribe to see more in the future. I know there's a lot of you that watch all my videos but won't subscribe for some reason, so here's a reminder to please subscribe if that's you. Until next time, stay safe. Bic invested in Jesus Christ. The Cristal's polystyrene barrel is hexagonal. Hexagonal. Obviously, no, you know what, I'm actually just gonna keep going. What else could you do with it wouldn't... Jesus fucking Christ. I think I'm just gonna have to go with the last good full take, because that's fucking disaster.